we doing today, everybody? Hopefully this video is finding you good. I wanted to say thanks. First, I'll start out by saying thank you once again, because so many of you were so supportive in the last couple of videos. I just want to say thank you for that. And just to set everybody's mind at ease, no, I cannot promise you I'll get any less gloomy or sad or melancholy. I don't know, but I am going ahead. So this is video number 2 or 3 here in the series, just another video trying to get back into the swing of things and trying to do a little something different. And maybe this would be something that everybody else would appreciate or maybe find some use out of. But because I have so many new people that have come to my social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, I thought I would go back a little bit and kind of give the synopsis or the story about how everything started. And that is, what is CK Knife and Tool? Who is Chad Carnan? How did this all start out? And it kind of puts it'll kind of connect a little bit from the previous video I did when it talks about, trying to build a business and do things basically on your own from scratch and what that entails. And so I thought I would start out that way. And now there's a couple of points I'd like to hit. Let me grab my phone here too. So a couple of points I'd like to hit off here too. So I had a couple of notes on here as well. So, but to start out with how everything began. Well, my name's Chad Carnan, and originally YouTube and everything else was just CK Knife and Tool. I was prompted to start a YouTube channel just basically on the premise of getting the name out there for the company, because at the time I had already started making a few knives, and it was just word of mouth, really small circle of friends and family. I was making them. I was really still learning, so a lot of those knives going back now, very rudimentary, and maybe I'll do a video later about some of my first knives and my knives now and what I learned about that. I think that'd be a really good topic for people that might be interested in stuff like this, knife making or a business in general, and stepping back a little bit and looking at whether it's your past mistakes or your progress from when you first started to where you are now. Some people do photos of them working out before and after, but in my case, it was what you create. And some artists might understand that better than others. Other people that maybe don't or can't make things by their hand is saving like the first couple of art pieces you ever made. And then now you're a painter from 10, 15 years ago and you paint now. You can go back and reflect on what you did. You can look at that painting and remember what it was like to make that painting and how it was. So maybe we'll do a video on that, because I do actually have some of my original knives, which is pretty cool. But I digress. What I wanted to talk to you about first is how this all got started. So a little backstory about me. I mentioned it earlier in the previous video about being a former police officer and a former Marine. That's what I am. I just enlisted for a 4-year stint in the Marine Corps, got honorably discharged, but I was kind of kicked out during the Bill Clinton administration when the Marines were cutting back. The Clinton administration was cutting back a ton of us, like 25,000, 30,000 Marines easily within a year. And all of us were getting kicked out for any little thing that we had. I had allergies, but I also ended up with because I was denied medical attention, I had walking pneumonia for a while, and it was just a whole host of mess. They kicked me out because of those problems. Other guys were getting booted because fallen arches, they had shoulder surgery, knee surgery, bad allergies. They're getting hay fever shots or allergy shots once a month. These were just all guys in my unit or a battalion. I was in Motor T. I was in a unit called CSSD 21, Combat Service Support Detachment 21. It was a combat unit augmented to support the Marine Air Wing, which was the second MAW, the second MAW Marine Air Wing. You'll know if you don't. Military likes their acronyms and abbreviations and everything. So the second Marine Air Wing was in Cherry Point, North Carolina. And so my unit was out of Camp Lejeune, and I got stationed at Cherry Point to help offset the Air Wing, the second MAW, as CSSD 21. So just probably half a dozen or more of us just in my Motor T unit, from myself being a Lance Corporal all the way up to a Staff Sergeant and my top, who all had anywhere between, whether, a year, I didn't know if I was going to stay in or not, I wasn't sure, but I enlisted, I was doing good. I had meritorious masses. I had letters of commendation from all sorts of Maryland PD and the city council and stuff, because we used to do volunteer work and so on when I was stationed in Aberdeen, Maryland. So I had a bunch of other stuff and accolades and everything, which was cool because that's stuff I enjoyed doing. But there were guys that I served with that had maybe 1 year left or maybe 2 years left out of a 20, and they wouldn't let them do it. So suffice to say, we all got told, here's your walking paper. So most of us got honorable discharges, but a few people got medical discharges, and there was a big difference between those two. It was very important for me that if you broke me and this is how you were going to treat me, then I want my honorable discharge. And because I was denied medical attention during combat training, I'd already had some people in that part of the Marine Corps were not very happy with me after everything, because they got, they had issues with the Navy Medical Corps when it came to my care and everything and what happened. So suffice to say, their belief was I shouldn't have been as bad as I was, and I ended up that way because of that. Then fast forward through to my Marine Corps years, no matter if you had a meritorious mass, I got meritoriously promoted. I had all these accolades. They didn't want you, so I got out. Went to school for a little while. I went to Michigan for a bit, and I bartended and I worked at my aunt and uncle's restaurant at the time up there in Michigan, the Upper Peninsula. Did that for about a year. Went back to Chicago, went to work for my dad's company, and then I went to night school. I went to work for him again and went back through to the Carpenters Union, became a union carpenter, also a floor covering. So I was trained in framing and building, as many of you guys might know if you've been following the channel for a while. I built both my shops and everything with the kids, taught them everything that I knew. And then ultimately I wanted to find something different. So I went into night school for criminal justice. And ultimately I got in the sheriff's department in Chicago in Cook County. At the time, it was one of the largest sheriff's departments in the United States, next to LA County. And I think Orange County, we had around 5,000 deputies at the time. And I went there, I worked the jails, I was on the street, I worked the hospital, I worked WITSEC and did a host of other things. So that was pretty cool. Left there, went to Seattle. I was going to go to Wisconsin or Seattle, and my wife and I never, at the time, my girlfriend, we'd never been to Washington at all. So on the prompts of a former friend, acquaintance of ours, we went to Washington. I tested. We vacationed in Washington for a week, did all the touristy things. Went there. We both kind of liked Washington. It was real pretty. To this day, it's the prettiest state I've ever lived in out of the 25 or some states I've been in. And it was really nice to be there. So I actually ultimately, going through the process, I got hired, went through the police academy, and did my time with Seattle PD. Did a short stint with another smaller department, which will remain anonymous. There's a couple of people that follow me here that know about that department, but it was a very bad department. Some good people I worked with, but wow, that was a very bad department. And what was even worse is in 2008, the bubble burst. And even though I was at 10 years of law enforcement at that point, I was still a probationary officer. And all the departments, these departments that had hired people that were in the police academy, they were like, hey, we got to do cutbacks. It's been now a year, 6 months or something, all the money, all the scaring, all the stuff going on. So guys that were in the police academy were allowed to graduate the police academy but guys that were on the street normally would stay, but because I was still probationary, I got let go. I was laid off, which was crazy. But that also happened because I wasn't, there was a couple people there in the higher ups that it was bad. I mean, it was really, really bad, but it was a blessing in disguise because my wife and I, we had 2 kids. We had Ben and Ella, and we were just getting our footing back down again. Kasha, the reason why I left Seattle to go to this other department was because she got sick for a while, so we had no family there. So I took a leave of absence, FMLA, family medical leave. And in doing so, a lot of people knew me from Seattle PD and the stuff I did there. They're like, hey, come on over here. So I did that, but suffice to say, it was very bad. I saw racism and sexism firsthand at its worst with a department of like 35 or 40 people at a time. It was horrible. And ultimately, some of those people that pushed against me are no longer in the department. They lost their jobs. They got in trouble. There was, like people that were going up in the ranks and they were cheating on their spouse with a subordinate. And, oh yeah, it was horrible. But like Kasha said, she says, everything I'd been through law enforcement, she says, it's a blessing in disguise. We'll just go with it. We were doing good. We weren't hurting. She knew I wasn't exactly happy I did that move. But ultimately, she's like, I'll work 8 days a week to keep you from being in law enforcement anymore because of the injuries I've had and all the other problems. So, and the kids were young. So I took care of the kids. She worked. She was a nurse. I mean, if anybody knows anything about nursing or the medical field in general, I'll put in an example. I was 4 years with the sheriff's department in Chicago. She graduated nursing, and within 6 months of that, she was making more money than me with 4 years on the sheriff's department. So she always made more money than me just working 3 days a week, and they always work extra hours, so that was cool. So she did that, and then because of my background in the trades, I was always doing little hustling jobs. I was always doing a tile job here and there or something, build a shed, do little things like that. And people were busy because they couldn't sell their houses. Now we're going into 09 and people weren't selling their houses and everything. So I started doing all these side jobs and started picking up. So between taking care of the kids, dropping them off at like daycare and such, and then doing the side jobs and then making dinners, and I was busy. I was happy. I had no problems with it. I've never not worked. I've always been able to do something. And so that was pretty cool. We went through it all. But then by 2011, 2012, the bubble pretty much was burst on the trades, on construction, because the market still wasn't that great, right? 2012. But there was a lot of other problems going on, as you might know, within the world or in the U.S. 2010 and 2012 was really a bad year to be in law enforcement still, so I was really blessed to not be in it and deal with it, especially with Seattle PD. But then ultimately, the work slowed down, but the kids were getting older, so I was stepping into that role of homeschooling. So as we're doing that and doing things, then I got the kids, we got a fifth wheel, and we started taking the kids out dirt biking, and we built a track in the backyard on our property. We had some acreage. So we're always doing stuff, the four of us, and doing well. This time Kasha's working well. She's healthy. Everything was going okay. And then stepping into 2014, we'd been homeschooling for a while, and I got the kids into camping and bushcrafting and doing a lot of foraging, and we would look up edibles, what grew on our property. We would start planting things on our property like asparagus and mountain blueberries and strawberries and raspberries. And we already had salal, and we had Herb Robert and all these other things that we would learn about. So into getting into that stuff, it's like, we're doing a lot of camping. And my buddy Greg, who many of you might know, one of my Marine buddies, we'd go out and do stuff together with the kids, land navigation and all that. I got to thinking, man, it'd really be nice to have a knife that I could pass on to my son and my daughter, be like, yeah, that was Dad's knife. I'm going to go camping, whichever one took it to do whatever. That was Dad's knife. So I started looking around at knives, and at this time I was already on YouTube watching videos and doing stuff and soaking up the knife world, different types of knives and what knife would be good for this and that. And so I started looking online at all these places, and either A, you had to buy a generic knife, and I'm like, God, that'd be nice, but it's just a knife. And then there was a few people that made what they called custom, but it wasn't really a custom knife, because they made a knife with, this is my knife style and shape. It's only this one or two, and you get 3 different handles, types of wood, and that's pretty about it. Maybe some liners, and that's it. But most of the time, guys were just making knives and putting them up on their website if they had them, and that's what they sold it. They sold it as a custom knife, but I always sat back and I'm like, God, that custom is something I want. Like, I literally picked out this, and that was what I wanted. So I was like, and they were getting pretty expensive. Now this is 2013, 2014. I was like, God, these things they were back then, $400 and some dollars these people are charging. And it's like, wow, that was absolutely bonkers. So reached out to Facebook, and I put it out on there saying, hey, does anybody know anybody about a good knife, custom knife? I forgot how I put it out. And one of my friends that I worked with back in Seattle PD, he was a detective, and we worked in the same precinct together. And he's like, hey, Chad, you know what? I know a guy who's retired Army, and he makes knives, and he's part of this church and stuff like that. So he connected us, and I called him up, and I went over to Jeff's house and sat there. I got to meet his wife, Robin, at the time, and we were sitting there talking. And then ultimately it came down to, he's like, yeah, come on back with some designs, and we'll work on it. So Monday I showed up with a bunch of stencils. We worked on stuff and ideas, and there it started. Spent about a week, good 40 or more hours at Jeff's place. Made my first knife, and it was like, God, this is so fun. And at that time I was finished, and Ben was, I think, 8 or 9 years old at the time, and he's like, oh, that's so great, and everything is close to getting a 9. I'm like, yeah, it's really good. I had fun. I went back the next week and I started working on another one. I was going to make it for Ben, and then Jeff's dad had some health issues, and so he stepped away for a while and went to Montana to help take care of his dad and everything like that. Ultimately, his father passed away, and Jeff decided, you know what, I'm leaving. I'm going to Montana. I'm going to live in my dad's place. We're going to do that. And so I never got to finish the knife there at Jeff's place, but I did get it far enough to where then Ben and I started to work on it together in my shop. And I had a little shop. It was all of like 20 by 20, if that. It was an old, like, some homeowner built this 20 by 20 single car garage door kind of thing. And matter of fact, I didn't even have a smartphone at the time. I took a regular picture of it, and I keep it on the wall here in my shop. And it was just this tiny little thing. And it had one 20 amp breaker that went to it, or a 15 amp breaker that went to the garage, just to give a light to flip on, and then maybe a single outlet to plug something in to run a tool or charge a battery. And if anybody knows anything about electricity, it's really hard to do stuff with a single outlet and 20 amps, and that's it. But Ben and I started working on it. I turned it into a little shop, and we started working on that knife, and him and I got it finished. And then when Jeff was leaving and we were helping him pack, he had actually started building a knife grinder for me, which I ultimately ended up using for the better part of 3 years of my knife making. We called it Frankenstein. And Ben and I then fine-tuned that knife, and that was Ben's knife that him and I had started working on together. And then once my dad saw that, I made a couple of knives for him. And then I started getting into dyed stabilized woods and doing some little things. Again, my knife refinement wasn't there just yet, but I kind of knew the direction I wanted to go. And then some other people started to see the knives, like, wow, you make this? So I started selling more and more. And then ultimately I also made a knife, and I raffled it off for the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. And so I did that kind of thing, and then raised some money for that. And that started the whole CCA knife and tool. And that was around August, September of 2014. So at the making of this video now, I'm at 11 years, thereabout. I don't have an actual date, but been doing knives now for 11 years. And I learned a lot. I learned quite a lot, actually, and I've refined my process since then. So that was kind of neat, and it was a really cool process to start out. And then it was also really cool to see how I get my kids involved, because they helped me rebuild the shop. We tore down most of that building with my buddy Greg and I and the kids. We tore most of it down, reframed stuff, put the floor in, had to make all the trusses individually by hand, and had hired out the roofing, and then we did everything else. We insulated, we drywalled, we taped, we painted, spray foamed everything. It was really good. And then that was the shop that most people remember me in when they started finding me more on YouTube and making knives for other companies. So that's kind of the first part of CK Knife and Tool. Oh, okay, I had to step away real quickly there. A break from that real quick, and usually when you watch a video, you get all these commercials and of course, there's ads and everything, even if you don't monetize nowadays. If you don't monetize a video that you do on YouTube, YouTube still throws commercials on it. You just don't get any credit for it at all. Very few videos don't get monetized at all, and I've done that to some of my previous videos where there's no reason to monetize it. But with that said, this is a normal video like everything else and is monetized. And you'll have people talk and sit back about certain products and to do like kind of an official commercial for it because they get paid for it. The links and everything down below in the description box, both on your iPhone or your desktop computer, your cell phone or your desktop computer, there's gonna be links down there. Onyx Off-Road, Treader, Starlink, Augason Farms. Those are pretty much my top 4 right there for sponsorships or anything like that. I don't get paid to do the commercials. I just make a percentage, whether it's like $2, $5, whatever it is, on you patronizing the links down below. I still have Treader Insurance. If many of you don't know, Treader Insurance is an insurance company for your camper, your trailers, your off-road vehicles, all your aftermarket components and everything that you put inside, from your refrigerator, your camp stove, your Devos light, all the way to your, ARB Tread Pros, recovery boards, those kind of things, your tires, your wheels, your spare tire carrier, your rooftop tent. Treader Insurance helps you augment or offset what your auto insurance doesn't normally cover. And this also includes things like towing and vehicle recovery when you're off-road, which many of you know, that could be pretty expensive. So there's a link down below for Treader. And if you use that to build yourself a quote, there's no obligation. They don't spam you or anything else. But if you go in there and you create an account, build up a quote, they'll send you a link within a day or two. They send you a link with a basic price of what it would cost for you to cover your vehicle and your trailer and your components. Okay, Augason Farms, you guys know, down there we use Augason Farms as well as some other freeze-dried foods, but Augason Farms has made me an affiliate. So if you use that link down below, you can also help me. It doesn't cost you anymore, but I get maybe like if you buy something for $14.95, I make $1.49 out of it, that kind of thing. So there's that. And then Onyx Off-Road, I became an ambassador with Onyx Off-Road, and I still am to this day, but the link is down below for that. But the downfall is Onyx has been running a lot of deals and discounts for folks that negate the discount you get from there. But if you use the link and you buy something, at least they know that you've watched a video and you use my link. I most likely don't make any money from Onyx, which is another issue, as well as Onyx Off-Road has done a huge marketing push, and they have made thousands of people ambassadors, and many of which have never been in the off-road community or hunting. Why, how, I don't understand any of that other than just marketing. But it does take the meaning of ambassadorship away from the people like myself and others. But nonetheless, their link is down below. So if you hit them up, if you think you're interested in doing an Onyx Off-Road membership, they get them down there. I think right now they're like for a year for a basic one, it's like $20 or something like that. But me, I get a big one. I get a lot of detailed. Mine's like around 75 or 100. So we'll see. But digress, I wanted to do that little infomercial down there for everybody real quick and let you guys know that new apparel. This is the flannel I have, as you see me wearing. It also says CK Knife and Tool on the back. And of course, I still have some mugs made in America, which are really cool. These are all fulfilled. The flannels, my t-shirts, which I'm also wearing a t-shirt. Yep, I'm wearing one of my t-shirts. Everything's going through Bunker Branding down there in Bernie, Texas. So I'd appreciate it, and they would appreciate it as well. So that's cool. My light just went out, so hopefully it didn't bother anybody. I just noticed that. So getting back to CK Knife and Tool. So fast forward, so we're making knives, I'm doing stuff. I started doing it within that first year or so, and somebody told me, like, hey, you gotta have a maker's mark. I think it was Jeff. He's like, hey, you gotta have a maker's mark. So the first, dozen knives I made or so didn't have anything on them. They didn't know CK or anything on it. So I'm like, well, what do I do? I don't want a maker's mark. I wasn't really gonna plan on doing this for, to make some money. I was just doing it for fun. So I sat around, kicked the ideas around a little bit, looked online, did stuff, and I just opted to go just CK. And a lot of people, a lot of companies were, most of them, the guys that were making them on their own, they were using just 2 initials. And some had 3 or 4 initials, some of them had a name. But I was like, well, how am I gonna, put a name on a knife, this big name and stuff like that. And these guys were doing electrochemical etching and stuff. I was like, gosh, that's so expensive. And I was so intimidated by all of it. So instead, I went to a company and I had a stamp made. And it was made out of A2 steel or something like that, hardened A2 steel. Just simple, CK. Because I saw one guy, he had something similar to that. And he would hand stamp his steel with his maker's mark and grind it all out. Well, I went and got a 10-ton press off of like Harbor Freight or some cheap site or someplace off Amazon, and I'd put the steel in her and I would press stamp CK in her, and then I'd have to grind the knife down and smooth it all out and get the press out, and it was really kind of rudimentary and wasn't the best thing to do for making knives, but I did it for a couple of years. And then I got an electrochemical etcher, and I would do the same thing, just electrochemical, my CK etch on there, and which is basically like a sodium chloride type water and a solution and electricity, and it would just buzz, and it would buzz through this little filament you had to, this film that you had to develop, and it would etch whatever was removed in the film, and you have to look it up, but it was nice. I did that for a while. I could customize some things, but I was really limited to what I could do. And then you had to do it on your computer, and then you'd use a special type of clear kind of paper to print on. So then you can cut it, and then you can develop it. Lots of steps. What I had, it was great. That's what I had, but it was a really tough process to go through. So then enter the laser engraver, which made my life so much easier, a lot more expensive, a little bit more challenging to get into, but suffice to say, it works really well with what I have. There are some issues with it. It does have little quirks here and there every now and then, but it allows me to customize an individual's knife a lot more. Now, spinning off of the customizing part, ended up coming up with CK and doing everything, and then somebody's like, you gotta have a box, put your knives in and stuff like that to mail them out, look professional, and have a logo and all this stuff. Well, then Ben and Ella one day, they were downstairs doing homeschooling stuff. I ran out, did some errands, I had to do something, come home, and they each had done a drawing for me because they knew I was like, I'm trying to work on this logo, figuring some idea out. And the logo that you see today, the round logo, the old-fashioned one, that's a compilation of both Ben and Ella having designed that when they were, 10 and 8 years old, something like that. I even have the little paper one still on my desk in the office there in the house. But so my logo was what Ben and Ella had both made for me, and I kept that ever since. When I moved here, Ella and I were sitting around. Ben was like, I didn't want to deal with it, and he's kind of poo-poo and everything. But the swoosh that we have now, that's something that Ella and I made. And then when I was going in everything, I think it was right before we left for Wyoming, I was coming up with a slogan. And that's the part where I had a really hard time with, because I was like, well, I don't want to sound cheesy. I don't want to be, corny or cheesy or something like that. And I'm sitting around doing stuff, and I was talking to the kids in Kasha one day. We're sitting there talking about stuff, and they're like, well, you got to be something like with family and your friends, and you're doing things, because I had a couple of classes. I had some people that would come out and work on knives, and guys that were in the Army or in the Marine Corps that would come out and do stuff in the shop, and given these experiences, and they're like really good memories and everything. And I'm sitting there, so the next day I got up and I'm like, it was making knives, friends, and memories. It was in my head. I woke up that day, that's what I had. So that's what the slogan became. And it wasn't like a cheap slogan in any way, shape, or form. It was what I wanted CK Knife and Tool to be. It is making knives, friends, and memories. Because I built knives. All right, we're going through like a second allergy season this year. We got this company up and going, and my biggest thing is to try to make a knife as unique to the person buying it as I possibly can, and if anything, help them create more memories. Now, if you bought one of my knives, you're buying a knife that was custom. At that time, I was only making, I think I had the bush knife, I had the Skinner, I had a gut hook on my bush knife, which I don't miss not making those. Those are tough ones to do, and you get expensive. And then I had a chef's knife. So I had a chef's knife, a carving knife, I had my bush knife, and I had a Jasper, or the Skinner. So I had like 4 or 5 knives in my first year or two of making knives. I was already working and refining on all those. And it was one of those things to be able to have you say, okay, this is a knife. Now it's a shape. Yes, it's this. I can shorten it a little bit, make it a little longer, which I did. But then having all the handle materials and such. And I had a very rudimentary website at the time, and it was really hard, and I was limited to what I could put on there, and I didn't know anything about website designs or anything else. But I had something, because I already had a domain and I had everything else. I had hurried and bought the domain, and I got Facebook, and I got all the CK Knife and Tool stuff on Instagram, the Gmails, all that kind of stuff. So I hurried up and got it all. And because that was one thing I had to do, and I didn't think about that at the time, because again, there's no like what to do 101 book that somebody handed me and said, hey Chad, since you're going to be a knife maker and have a business, you want this. I didn't know that. And again, having so many other things going on in life, with homeschooling the kids, taking them to karate or dirt biking or soccer, and out and camping with them, and making dinners and laundry, and Kasha working a lot of hours, that wasn't even close to being in my wheelhouse. So at that point, I was just struggling. I'm like got muddy boots, and I'm just trucking through and doing what I could. But what it came down to is making knives, friends, and memories was great, because I'm making someone a custom knife, and that knife is meant that they're going to be the person that I was when I was looking at knives in 2012, 2013, and going into 2014. Was I wanted a knife that helped make memories, and then when I was gone, my kids would have those same memories and say, yeah, that was Dad's knife. He taught us when we went camping and we did X, Y, and Z. So that was really cool. And then it started getting to where, I was blessed. I was really thankful, blessed to have people, not only were they buying knives from me, but I had repeat customers. And repeat customers are super important to have, because it's showing you as a maker, as an artist, that what you did was so good that this person felt that they wanted to come back to you again and buy something else from you. That's awesome. I mean, I would thought I was happy just to break 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I thought I was just ecstatic to just be able to sell 20, 30 knives, 40 knives in a year. But to have somebody come back and buy another knife, or have somebody come back and then not just buy one knife, but buy 4 or 5 knives for family for upcoming Christmas, it was like, poof, it was crazy to think that I was that person. And it's very humbling. And at the same time, and I know I faltered a little bit at it, is you can get a big head. You can think I'm all good. It's me. Look at me. I'm the awesome knife maker. And yay, wah, kind of stuff. As small as you are, of course, but it was nice. It was so cool to know that. But then later to see that you're getting orders from Canada and the Netherlands and Australia and New Zealand and the UK, and it's, Hawaii and, I don't know where else. I got a map up here that I did with someone who was working with me for a little while, Cohen, and put pins in all the states and countries that I have knives in. But it's just awesome to see that, 11 years later, and that's what I have. The whole making knives, friends, and memories, it's a catchy slogan and everything, but it meant so much more to me because that's what I did. That's what I was doing at that time when I made the slogan. I was at maybe 9 years at knife making, and I was already at this point going, I am so happy and grateful that this is what it is. And it was like making knives, friends, and memories. There are people that have bought some of the first knives I've ever made. I still talk to this day. 8 years later, these guys I'm still talking to them. 7, 8 years later, we're still talking. That's a friendship. They're part of a family in a way too. But I'm making a knife, I'm making new friends, and I'm making memories both for them and for myself. So I hate to say it, but maybe it sounds corny or something, but it isn't just a catchy slogan. It is truly what I ultimately wanted CK Knife and Tool to be. It's really, really pleased with how it turned out. Okay. With that being said, it does kind of bring us through. I know it was a little bit back and forth a little bit, but that's pretty much how it all started there. I've made some knives for different types of organizations, such as the BHA, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Made a knife for them. I do Forgotten Coast Canine. I used to make knives for Kit Badger. Well, I still do in a way. It's just, and maybe that's a whole, that connection of the company, or that part of the company, making knives for YouTubers and stuff, that goes back to the previous video about wanting to be able to make a lot of knives for a company or an organization, but I can't as a individual maker. And that goes to hurt. And it's not, Ivan's an awesome guy. I mean, Ivan's great. He's a former Marine, really nice guy, down-to-earth guy. I like Ivan. I am very happy he's successful. I just can't make the knives for him and for John with the Warrior Poet Society, Casey with Coyote Works. I can't make the hundreds of knives that these guys want. And when you can't do that, and it's no fault of their own, but if you're a company, you're like, hey, this product is doing so good, I want to sell a bunch of these, but the person giving me the product to sell can only keep up a certain amount of value. Well, then you just get tired of trying to push it, because you're like, well, why am I going to advertise for this phone when the first 30 people buy the phone and that's it, and then I can't get it all, and I can't make any more money off of it. I really should be making more money, or whatever it might be. The thing is I couldn't keep up with that demand. It doesn't mean I won't make a knife for him. And if I sold a woodsman shank and somebody wanted a Kit Badger laser engraved on it and the pin, I would do that, and I would reach out to Ivan and be like, hey dude, I sold one of your knives. Do you want do you want your cut? And like Warrior Poet Society is, I don't think I've made a Warrior Poet Society knife in 2-3 years at least. I made 1 or 2 since I've been here in Wyoming. And so John is like, whatever, it's okay. They got so many other things going on right now to get, money from me, the little bit it is for 2 knives out of the last 4 years is like, no biggie, don't worry about it. And it's nice to see that, but also I'm the guy that's out all the material. I have all the pins. I have pins for Kit Badger. I have pins for Coyote Works. I have pins for Warrior Poet Society. And the knives are not selling anymore. And the flip side of that is being a business owner and seeing that, saying you guys are not pushing your product, so it's not getting sold. I can only do so much, especially after the last couple of years. I can only do so much. You all have a larger footprint. You should be pushing that again or reaching back out to me and say, yes, let's try to do something. Let's try to revitalize this brand, this knife, or let's work on something different together so we can make you some money and make me some money. So both of us are at fault, but neither one of us are to blame. And I don't hold them guys to blame with it. It's just this is what ended up happening with what I have. And that's why you guys don't see the Coyote Works 1.0 or 2.0, which aren't really a good name anyhow. So I came up with the camp knife and the pup. But then because, if you don't push a brand, if you don't market and push something, you're not going to get paid for it. Nobody's going to give you money for free just to do it. And I ended up finding out that the knife models I've made for these individual companies and stuff, people have liked them, but they didn't want anything to do with that particular person. Woodsman Shanks, I've made 5 or 6 of them, but they don't want anything to do with Kit Badger, and they didn't want any of the material that he had, and they wanted like a blade a little bit longer and this, that. So then there comes that customizing part again, and that's what I built my business on. So same thing goes with the companion. Forgotten Coast Canine, Tyler and I developed this companion, but we're not selling. They got to push more. But again, it's just wherever people's dynamics and connections are, what they're focusing on. But I had a lot of people reach out and say, I like that companion, but I don't want anything. I don't want that. I want wood. I want to have, a Bible verse on the side or my dad's name on there, something. So I started doing that. So I'd make companions that, like, for instance, I made 2 that were for brothers, for George and his brother. And I made 2 identical companions. And again, so that's the customizing part. But being able to make stuff for Forgotten Coast Canine, Kit Badger, Warrior Poet Society, Coyote Works, Icon Vehicle Dynamics, Milwaukee Tools, I would love to, Nissan, I'd love to make those knives and put those out and be able to do that. But I couldn't because the business model just wasn't working the way I wanted it to, because I was one person and this is all I had. So let's see. I talked about laser engraving a little bit. And the laser engraving is basically on the website. It covers verses, maybe a slogan, a name, stuff like that, because I keep it minimal. Now, the laser engraver, when I bought this laser engraver, it was probably around that $4,000 mark, $3,500 mark. Then you buy the programming. Then I had to pay to get the laser, learn about some of the stuff. I had to go through classes and get it set up. I bought a computer screen, keyboards, mouse, some other incidentals, and then my Marine buddy Rui gave me Alienware. He rebuilt a computer because he worked for Microsoft and he knows all that kind of crazy stuff. So he sent me a computer, and that's what this is running off of, an Alienware. So with that said, I charge what I charge for laser engraving, and I think it's like $35-40 now, just for those basic things, because that's my time to sit there, work it all up, do it, and the wear on the laser, because after a while you'll have to replace the lenses and get different lenses. You ultimately have to replace the laser after a while. So I charge that. That's just basic. Anything more than that, I charge more, because if you want a special design or a logo, like the Angry Unicorn we did for Chris, or some other things like I would do for companies or something that don't tread on me and stuff I've done, that would cost a little bit more because I have to buy that artwork. Then I have to convert it over to work on the computer, and a laser engraver, so it takes some more time. So I'm like an hour or 2 at least into doing it all. So it costs more money for laser engraving, but most of the price goes to saving up so I know I have enough money to replace the laser when I have to. Sheath attachments and how they work. I currently offer 3 different types of sheath attachments as a basic. but two are my predominant ones: the Blade Tech Lock and the Ulti-Clip APH. The Blade Tech Lock was my go-to, most knife makers go-to. It got its start decades ago. Blade Tech was in Puyallup, Washington, and they got their start with law enforcement and firefighting turnout gear and bags and all this other stuff. But the Blade Tech was used on the back of tasers. Ultimately went on holsters and some other things, but it's universal and it could be adapted to backpack straps. It could be carried, a knife or a pistol could be carried horizontal or vertical when used on a tech lock to a belt or backpack straps or something, and they're really, really durable with an extra safety lock on the bottom of them. They're really nice, bulletproof. They work very, very well. Now, again, they've been around for at least 15 years, I think it is, if not more. The Ulti-Clip, they're out of Chicago, made in America company, and I got to talk to the owners, and I'm also with Blade Tech and with Ulti-Clip. I am a distributor. I am a product ambassador or distributor of them. And the Ulti-Clip APH is super cool. It's a steel, anodized steel, like a blued steel, spring steel wire clip. Super low profile, really tight. It adapts to different widths of sheaths up to a certain extent, because then you start to overstretch it a little bit, but keeps that knife really tight to your body and really snug. A good ride. I really like that one, and that's why I put that a lot on my smaller knives now. But you can get either one on my website. You can go in there and get sheath attachments or wherever it's at. You can buy either one of them. So if you get a knife and you have a tech lock and you want an APH, or if you have an APH and you want a tech lock, you can go and buy an extra one on my website. Or if you have just a knife, if you have an SE or a Gerber or something like that, and you want a tech lock or an APH to put in your sheath, you can just go on the website and buy one from there. So those are the clips I use. When I do my holes, they're at least universally set to where you could use a tech lock or an APH, as well as you can invert the holders a little bit. You can use some of that looping and do some other things. I don't know if there are other attachments that might match with it, but it is a Blade Tech Lock hole pattern, which is at 3/4 of an inch is where the holes are at, or 1.5 inches. And usually mine are 1.5 inches gapped. Sometimes I'll have them to where there's 3/4 of an inch space, but I don't like a lot of little holes on there. I don't like that much, but that's just me. Really made in America, yes. My steel, most of my steel is American-made steel. Sometimes I was getting it and it was Canadian. I don't know what steel and when that happens, but I do know at least 20% of the steel that comes from my supplier is Canadian, but most of it's made in America. My pins, the only pin that is foreign made is the center decorative pins, like Kit Badger, Warrior Poet Society, Five Finger Death Punch, Coyote Works, the Mountain and the Moon pins, all the animal pins and initials. All of those pins are actually made in Siberia. The guy that makes my knife pins, I've done videos in the past on, he's been making my knife pins for at least the last 8 years, 7 or 8 years of my 11 years in business. No, probably 9 years, 8 or 9 years I've been buying from Alexi. Great. He's an honorable, trustworthy guy. He makes a great product. If I've ever had every slight inkling of an issue, he's on it right away, takes care of it all. All the other people that have ever been hit on to make those pins are all in Pakistan, Indonesia, Thailand, someplace, some weird out. But I'm like, Alexi's my guy. As long as he's making them, I'm going to buy from him. So those are the other pins. And then handle material. Well, as you know, I use a lot of different woods. So some of my woods, like Cocobolo, Wenge, Madagascar ebony, stuff like that, it's not made in America. Of course, it's from the country of its origin. But the G10, the SureTouch, the micarta, all the micartas and all that stuff, that's all been made here, so that's good. My liner material's all American made. The solid pins, the 1/8 inch and the tube pins, that's all American made. And they're made here in the shop in Wyoming, right here. Before they were made in Washington, now they're made in Wyoming. So everything's made here by hand. And yes, I am a Made in America movement ambassador. It was around 2018, 2019, I think it was, where I got made the Made in a Movement ambassador. And I've been that ever since, now the last 6-7 years. Okay, so yeah, my chair keeps, there we go. Okay, so I started working on a list because I had a couple of people ask me this. So I think, it would be that's the last one. So the Forgotten Coast Canine Companion, and now there's 2 variations of that, but Companion. Montana, the Coyote Works, the old Coyote Works, the Camp Knife. I'll call that Camp Knife actually. I was writing the original part. So I got the Camp Knife, the pup, a Jasper, a Rogue, a Renegade, a Chimera. The Chimera came 2 different ways too. It came full length and it came with a shorter handle and a taper tang, so figured out what it is. The Amarok. Oh yeah, there we go. Chimera 2. That was the Chimera 2. That was the shorter one. A bush knife, a Whisper, my little neck knife I used to make. A Kitetsuki, the chef's knife. A Santoku, a carving knife. The 307, the Warrior Poet Society's STP, Stabby, Thrusty, Pokey thing. The Woodsman Shank, good old Ivan, Kit Badger. My Skinner. My Border Patrol knife I was making for Customs and Border Patrol down there. So I got their knife. It's like a narrower, it's a little bit shorter, a little bit narrower version of the camp knife, but then it has the U.S. Border Patrol logo on one side of the blade. It also has a badge, their badge. It says U.S. and it's got the Border Patrol badge in the handle. And then the sheath is actually laser engraved with U.S. Border Patrol on the side, on the sheath. The Sentinel, which y'all are familiar with. The Yeti, the most used, newest one here, the Yeti. My Sniper Frog, the Scout, and there's one in here I made one. I haven't even showed you guys yet. It was, I guess I can't count that one yet because I made one. And then that was it. So I won't even mention that one. So I have 25 on my list. And I don't think I've missed out on anything. I believe I got 25 on there. So I made 25 knives and slight variations thereof, because the bush knife and the pup I've made with gut hooks. I've made a Montana with a gut hook. I've made the Santoku and the chef's knife and the Kitetsuki, standard length around 13 inches long, and I've made them smaller to where they're only about 10 inches long. So again, that customization part. So that is, so right now after 11 years, I have 25, almost 26, but I'm probably not going to put this other one out till next year. So I have 25 or more knife models, and with variations in what you can get, taper tangs, gut hooks, different short length and stuff like that. Like a bush knife, I made one bush knife, I think it was like 10 inches long. It was the only one I ever made that way. So again, making little customized options or changes to them. So 25 base knife models and maybe about 30-ish variations of a knife, one way or the other. So if that helps those that were inquiring. So that's about it. So some of the things that going forward, like I said, swag, that's the biggest thing that helps me right now. Is if you guys found over on the website, you can go underneath the apparel side there and you get a hat, t-shirt, a hoodie. I am 5'10", 175 pounds. I wear a large flannel. I wear a large to extra large t-shirt. I try to stay more towards the extra large t-shirt. The shirts are the next level, so they have a lot more of the snug fit around the shoulders and the arms. And they're more slender fit for most of the styles. So I lean a little bit more extra large than large. And then the hoodies, I definitely wear a lot extra large because I like a little bit baggier hoodie. So that's kind of nice there. But yeah, anything helps. I do have these mugs. I have the new ones. on the website, as well as I might have 1 or 2 of the older Wyoming ones left over. If they're available on the website still, they'll be up there too for the mugs. Mugs I ship out to you directly from here. T-shirts, hats, hoodies, all that other stuff comes from Bunker Branding down in Texas. And I think there's probably 2 or 3 knives that are homeless right now on the website as of September 8th of 2025. Recording this video, so there might be a couple of knives up there still, so take a look at that. I appreciate it. We've been doing some yard work, some stuff outside, so all last week, and now today's Monday, of course, so I'm doing some errands, got a bunch of chores to do, so I'm not in the shop now. But I will be back in the shop here shortly to start working on more knives. I'm going to try to do some pups, and then I'm going to go back to doing some more scouts again and get those out, and then maybe some other knives. I'm trying to get again, I think I mentioned in another video, I'm going to try to stay, if I'm making the knife and you're buying it, the base knife that you're looking at with a sheath and whatever you see is going to be around that $350 mark, $400 mark. I'm trying to keep it that way. But with material costs, steel cost, I can't, that is nuts. That's a video in and of itself, talking about materials and products and stuff as a knife maker, what I get into and what I do. But anyhow, so that is the start and finish the CK knife and tool. A quick, easy, and in a condensed form. A little bit of background about me too, just kind of puts it all together. Just been really fortunate, really happy that I could fall into this, but I've always had a fairly decent aptitude to pick up on things and do stuff more artistically than anything else. I got my kids into painting, and we even did bonsais. I think we even did a video one year a while back. We did copper wire. Bobby Duke did a thing, and me and the kids followed it. We did copper wire, twisted it, and made bonsai trees out of copper and all that stuff. So that was pretty cool too. So yeah, so we do stuff like that, and painting like Ella does now. She paints. Ben got into painting too, and he just never liked it that much, but he was good at it. For almost no practice, he did pretty good. Carving, everything else. So it's just nice to know that you have some benefit in the world and you can give back in some way, shape, or form. So making knives and helping raise money for nonprofits and for organizations and for companies was always really nice. Making knives to give someone an heirloom that they can pass on to a family or friend, or make a kitchen knife for such like Kyler and Emily for a wedding and stuff, that makes it so special, and it makes everything I do worth it. So even though I don't make a lot of money doing it, it's still well worth it. So again, gang, thank you very much. I'll let you go. I do appreciate it. Remember, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff keeps me from the bottom of the YouTube bucket. Hit up cknifeandtool.com for homeless knives and all the apparel. Links down below for anybody that might want to help me with something, whatever it might be. All these little things help. Mailbox money is what my buddy Rob Turcolo would call it. And Lunkers TV, it would be mailbox money. All the little stuff built together does help in some way, shape, or form. But until the next video, guys, have a good one. Bye.